it's just so much easier. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my tips for flying with a lap-sitting child. Martin and I fly quite often and he is almost done being a lap-sitting child. So I feel like we've learned a few things along this journey and I'd like to share those with you. So let's go ahead and dive right in and go over all these tips that we've learned. I would definitely say the first tip is to arrive at the airport early, but not too early. There's like a very special spot to where you're there with plenty of time. You can check in because you do have to show proof of your child's birth date. So you have to go through the full service check-in and that can take some time. And then TSA, that definitely always takes time, especially if you're traveling with liquids. And yeah, so just arriving early so that you're not stressed out and you can do all those things. And then also make sure you can use the bathroom before you get on the plane and change a diaper before you get on the plane. So definitely arriving early, but then you don't want to get there too early because hanging out at the airport really isn't that fun with a child or in general. And then I would definitely say my next and my biggest tip is baby wearing your child through TSA. That is just so much easier than having a stroller and fumbling with a stroller, or if your child is walking by this point, holding their hand because they could run off and you got to get all this stuff on the conveyor belt, and it's just hectic no matter what with a child. So having Martin strapped to me makes it so much easier. And then you get to walk through and then they just scan your hands and then you're good. So definitely baby wearing is a big thing for me in the airport. And then also baby wearing through the airport while we're walking. Once we get to the gate, I like to let Martin out and watch the airplanes now or stretch his legs, change his diaper, things like that. But while we're walking to the gate, I like to keep him on me so that I don't have to worry and we can find the gate and know where we're going. Definitely another thing I recommend is traveling light. I try to pack the least amount of things possible. Now, I'm very lucky that my mother-in-law has pretty much everything I could ever imagine needing for Martin, and so does my family. My family has a pack and play, she has a pack and play, sound machines, all that sort of thing. But I still try to pack the least amount of things possible, and I also check everything possible right away to my final destination because I just can't have that much stuff in my hands. What I like to keep with me is our carry-on backpack diaper bag, which I've done a video on that, which I will link down below if you want to see what I pack in my carry-on, and then my Lila baby carrier. Those are the only two things that I keep with me on the plane. Everything else is checked to the final destination. The car seat, if I'm taking a stroller, all of that checked to the final destination. Another major tip is to make sure that you stay as organized as possible. You want to make sure that you know where everything is just in case you need it. The last thing you want to be doing is fumbling around looking for something. So check out my what I keep in my toddler carry-on to see how I stay organized. So Martin is still drinking whole milk, and this is a tip I've actually just recently learned. Almost every coffee shop is willing to sell you whole milk or whatever kind of milk your child needs. So what I do is I take my empty cup and I go to the coffee shop, allowing enough time because most of the time the coffee shops have long lines, and I buy milk right away. And then I put it in our insulated pouch in our diaper bag. So that way Martin has milk for the takeoff. For the landing, I do give him a sucker most of the time for his ears. It's another great tip if your child is old enough for a sucker and doesn't like to drink milk or juice or anything like that. A lollipop will help their ears. And yeah, but if your child is still breastfeeding, that is the best, because you can just breastfeed your child on takeoff and on landing and their ears will be fine. Those were the easy days. As Martin has gotten older, I've had to get more creative. Okay, so you also want to make sure that you are very, very, very comfortable with how all of your baby gear works. Whether you're utilizing a stroller up until you get on the plane, or if you're using a baby carrier, or even the toys or electronics or whatever it is that you're packing to keep your child entertained, you want to make sure that you have practiced with these items. You have used them a few times. You know how they work, because there's nothing worse than getting on the plane and your child being like, oh, I want to watch a show. And in my opinion, the airplane is the place where shows are fine and games on the iPad are fine. We don't use a lot of screen time at home, but on the airplane, go ahead. And the last thing you want to do is be fumbling and be like, oh, well, I don't know how to turn it on. And then you got a meltdown, and then it's not fun. Also, with your stroller, you want to make sure you're really comfortable if you're going to keep it all the way up to the gate, because you don't have very long from when you're going down the ramp to getting on the plane when you put your stroller to the side to gate check it. You just have a couple minutes if you're lucky. And the last thing you want to be doing is fumbling with it, and someone's like, oh, can I help you? But then they don't know how to help, and then you don't know how to help, and it can just be like a lot and stressful. So just make sure you know how to utilize those tools. Same with the baby carrier. Like, if you can't get it unhooked, or you don't know how to get it unhooked, or you don't know how to put the baby in, you just want to practice with everything before you get on the plane or even get to the airport. Another tip is, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you are flying alone with your child and you see a family, maybe say a mom, a dad, and one child, and they have a free set of hands, and you maybe need a little bit of help, maybe holding the baby for a second, or maybe, I don't know, help pouring something into a cup, or just whatever it is that you may need help for, usually other parents are so willing to help. And I have been so lucky. A lot of times on flights, I will have another mom near me. One time we were not allowed to get up at all on a flight, and Martin peed through his diaper. And like, we could not get up. We were not allowed to. So I turned to a mom that was sitting behind me. She had 3 kids, her and her husband. And I looked at her and I was like, what would you do if you're not allowed to get up to change a diaper and your child peed through theirs? She was like, hold on. We're going to figure this out. Do you mind if I hold the baby? And I was like, not at all. And so she holds him up like Simba from The Lion King, and I changed his diaper mid-air on the plane. Without that mom, I probably would have panicked and just left him wet. I don't know. But she was amazing. We got through it. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Another tip, if you have a lap sitting child, always, always, always ask if it's a full flight. I ask every employee I encounter along the way. When I'm first checking in, I ask, by chance, do you know if this is a full flight? They usually are able to let you know, but they tell you things may change. People might jump on the flight between now and then, blah, blah, blah. Then, as I'm getting on the plane, I ask the flight attendant, do you know, is it a full flight? Are there any empty seats? And if they say that there is an empty seat, I have just started doing this. I used to be like, oh, I don't want to do this. But also when Martin was little, like, it was easier. Put him in the seat, in the middle seat. and just pray that no one asks you to move him. No one asks, is he a lap sitting child? Because if he is, I mean, he is. If they ask, you have to tell them the truth. You cannot lie. That's not cool. But when you get that extra seat, it just makes life so much easier. But I don't have the money to be paying for that extra seat right now, so he's gonna be a lap sitting child until he can't be any longer. This one is kind of, I see the pros and cons for both. Whether you want the aisle seat or the window seat. So when Martin was a newborn and he would sleep majority of the time and he was just tiny and I didn't need a ton of space, I always chose the window. Always, always, always chose the window. And as he got older and I needed more space and I needed to be able to bounce him to get him to sleep, I started choosing the aisle seat. This last flight that we took to California, on the way there, we had a whole row to ourselves. That was the best flight I have ever had with him. He liked to sit and look out the window and was really interested in that. We had tons of space. I could get up and bounce him if need be. I had the best of both worlds. Then on the way home, it was a full flight, completely packed, and I was like, am I gonna choose the window and let him look out, or am I gonna choose the aisle and be able to stand up whenever I need to bounce him? And at first I was gonna choose the window because he wanted to look out of it, but then he kind of like started fussing. I was like, you need to sleep. We're picking the aisle and I'm bouncing you in your baby carrier and you're going to sleep. And he slept for about 2.5 hours. I've pretty much come to terms with the fact that Martin will only sleep on planes for about 2, maybe 2.5 hours, no matter what time we fly. So I kind of keep him up the first half and play with him and keep him entertained. And as soon as he starts getting fussy, the baby carrier comes out and he goes to sleep. That little baby carrier has been a lifesaver for flying. If I give you one tip out of this whole video that you take back, wear your baby on the flight. It's just so much easier. All right, guys, so those are my tips. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you had something that you could take away from this. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you consider subscribing. Again, my name is April. My son's name is Martin. He is now 22 months. Oh my gosh, he's gonna be 2 so soon, and then our lap sitting child days are over. But I share all things motherhood, lifestyle, and Nashville, Tennessee. So give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Let me know if you have any other tips for flying with a lap sitting child or just a child in general. And we'll see you in our next one.